This explanation is based around a mythical unit, a theoretical unit. This isn't based on any real unit. It's just used as an example so that you can understand the structure of how we do the assessment deadlines in the computing section. The unit I've chosen to model is one which has 5 passes, 3 merits, 2 distinctions, and the tutor has decided to assess it in 3 separate assignments, which I'm calling A1, A2 and A3. Each one of those assessments has a deadline, so that's a fairly normal situation and really does mirror what we tend to do in computing. Many of the units have more than 3 assessments, but in this particular example we've got 3. So here's the tutor's assessment plan. You'll see that the A1, A2 and A3 are listed across the top of the screen. Those are the assignments that have been issued by the tutor, and he set deadlines for each one of those, A1, A2 and A3, 21 October, 01 December and 07 January for each one of those assignments in general. You'll see that in A1 you're being assessed for P1, P2, M1 and so forth. Now let's just state one thing up front. The 7th of January is the last assessment deadline, and that's the last deadline for all submission of work. At that point the unit is closed, and what is submitted at that date will be marked and assessed. Anything submitted after that date will not be assessed if it's a merit or a distinction. You're too late. It's really important that we give credit to those people who've taken the trouble to submit their work on time, and they get the advantage of doing that merit and distinction when it's been submitted on time. Now I know there are sometimes extenuating circumstances, that things go wrong, things go badly wrong at home and so forth, and we can make exceptions if a good case is put forward, but in general, in this case, the 7th of January would be the deadline for all work submitted for merits and distinctions as well. So here's assignment 1. You see it's assessing P1, P2, M1. And what the tutor will do is at the end of that, the assessment period, which is the 21st of October, the work's submitted. Now the rules are that if you have submitted P1 and P2 and they don't make the grade, then the work will be referred. Now that work can be referred and referred and referred right up to the end of the unit, and you will be supported so that you can get at least a pass in every single unit that you study in the computing section. Now in this assignment he's said to you that he wants you to do M1. Now M1 is a merit, and what the rules are is that if you have made a reasonable attempt and submitted work for M1 before the 21st of October, it'll be marked, of course. But if it doesn't quite make the grade, if it's a reasonable attempt but doesn't quite make it, it can be referred. Now the referral will often have a deadline from the tutor of saying when they want the work to be submitted back to them, and if she doesn't think that that deadline is going to be reasonable, then you can negotiate it with them, of course. But the deadline is important, and so you get another chance to do the merit by that deadline. Now that would be M1 carrying forward effectively into the next assessment period. If you have not submitted work for M1 by the 21st of October, you cannot submit it after that date. You've lost your opportunity for a merit in that unit. Here the same rules apply. I don't think there's any point in me explaining them further. M3, D1, if you've made a reasonable attempt at those, and if they've been referred rather than failed, then they can be carried forward into the next assessment grouping. Here's the absolute deadline for the unit, 07 January in this case, mythical date of course. You get P5, M2, D2 being assessed here, and if you have made a reasonable attempt and failed P5, it may be referred. If you've made a reasonable attempt at M2 and D2, it may be referred. But any work not submitted for the merits and distinctions before that final deadline date will not be marked by your tutor. She doesn't have to mark it, or he doesn't have to mark it. So you have to be aware of that deadline and respect it. Here's a summary. Deadlines have to be met. They're important for everyone and they ensure fairness. That's above all what must be important to everyone. That those who take the trouble to prepare the work and get it ready for the deadline will be given the credit that they deserve for doing so. The work for the target criteria must be submitted by the deadline date. You can't submit after the deadline dates. Reasonable attempts can be referred. If you've just gone shy of the standard required for particular criteria in a pass, a merit or distinction, it can be referred, but not if it hasn't been submitted before the deadline date. Referrals may be time limited. A tutor may put a time limit on the amount of time that can be allowed for you to do a referral, and that also will be absolute. Now let's go back to that really important point. The final deadline, the 7th of January in our mythical unit, is absolute. No work submitted after that date will be marked for merits or distinctions. The tutor can support you to a pass, but not for merits and distinctions. Remember, things happen, life happens, so if you have some reason why you can't meet a deadline, you must let your tutor know in good time and negotiate a new deadline date, which will be allowed with reasonable submissions within a reasonable time and so forth. Hope that helps and hope that clears it up.